So what happened at Laurel Highlands Hiking Trail Ultra this weekend? I basically shit the bed again, really bad. Um, I should have been pulled from the course, not been allowed to continue. Um, but my buddy John uh, saved my race. Actually, sort of forced me to continue on, even though I was ready to DNF and quit. Um, like in my longer race cap, I get into more details, but this is the short version of what happened. Um, Early on, I fell behind on electrolytes. I only took water the first 11 miles because I forgot to put my noon tablets in them. And I didn't take any food with me because the first 11 miles I really felt like I didn't need anything, which I really didn't. I wasn't hungry. I just needed the electrolytes. Um, and then between mile 11 and 19, I fell. Was, I would say it was more mile 17-ish. I sort of fell. My legs gave out from underneath me. I smashed the palm of my hand. It's a little bit swollen still. And it just sort of like rocked my stomach and basically took my, what I say, my video game life meter was at 100% at the time. It took it directly like down to zero, and it took me a couple minutes to actually get going again. So I don't know what was up with that. I think maybe just like the trauma of the fall, like that hard, just like trauma real quick, and then the pain of like my wrist and palm, um, just like sucked the life out of me. It was just really weird, but I still felt fine up to that point. Like that first 17 miles before I fell, I was running comfortably. I had tons of energy. Felt like I could run all day long. And then as soon as I fell, I was just like, wow, I'm done. But I kept going on. Got some stuff at mile 19 aid station, which is the second aid station. I think it's like actually like 19.6, whatever case may be. Was feeling it a little bit, getting a little bit, tired. Just as soon as I fell, just sort of screwed me up. Like nothing was really hurting on my body, except for like my wrist and just like the jarring of my stomach. Even though I was still behind nutrition wise, um, electrolyte and food wise, but I kept running, and then I had to go to the bathroom like at mile 21, and I went in the woods, and then like my legs sort of got stiff, and from there it just got worse. Like I just sort of shut down. So at mile 22, so I pooped at like 21, and then mile 22 to 26 aid station, I completely just stopped sweating. I felt overheated, like my core was just on fire. And again, I noticed I wasn't sweating, right? I felt really gritty with salt. Um, I don't know if I was really getting hazy or not. I can't really remember at the time, but I just knew I wasn't right. Um, and at mile 25, when I called John, I was like, hey, get my waist packed, get my poles ready. I'm going to need them. I'm having a bad day. And this was when I was still actually in third place. When I fell, I was in second. I didn't even get taken until somewhere in that like 22 to 26 range, I believe, is when I got passed. Yeah, I'd have to look at the splits again, but it was somewhere after aid station 2 is when I really, yeah, I got passed and was in third. Then when I was at the aid station 3, I got passed by like 13 people since I was there for like an hour. That whole mile was an hour and 10 minutes. Um, but when I came in, I was just so bad and dehydrated. Electrolytes were completely out of balance. I was so far behind on nutrition. Um, Again, my stomach was not really upset, but like that jarring just like made it uneasy. My palm was hurting, and then like I couldn't really talk. Like it was hard for me to actually like talk at the time. I was like basically hyperventilating, trying to like cool my body down. Again, I still wasn't sweating. I felt like shit. I knew I was in bad shape and trouble. My uh, hands were really white. I was starting to get really tingly in my hands, my head, and my feet. So I was sitting in a chair, and I was just like, dude, like I felt so bad and horrible. Like it just felt like all the blood was like out of my body, and I was just like, I'm done. There's like medically, as bad as I felt at the time, I should not have been allowed to continue. They should have stopped me right there and said, "Hey, you're done for the day. You're not going back out there. This is our decision." Um, and actually, at the time, I really didn't want to either. Um, but John, I'm gonna blame him for this. Um, even though I'm glad he uh, now nursed me back to health, but like at the time, honestly, I should not have continued. And I actually wanted to DNF for health reasons because I didn't think I was going to be able to regulate my body all day long. Well, the next like 44 miles. Um, so I'm sitting there like barely able to, open my mouth a little bit, again, like tingling. Uh, just know I'm in like such a heat stroke, heat exhaustion, whatever medical dehydration state. Um, and then my legs were like starting to like uh, seize up a little bit. I could feel like the acid in my legs just like building. And again, like pressure in my chest and just it being overheated and just breathing so heavy. I was just like, dude, I just need to be done. But there was really nothing I could do at the time. Um, I mean, if there was an ambulance there, they would have been like, "We're taking you to the hospital." Like, I have no doubt in my mind. Because even I think when I was pooping or something, like my pee was just like so dark. Um, and like the no sweating for 4 miles is just such a huge warning sign with that tingling. Because that even though that 4 miles normally like on a road or something might only take me 24 minutes 25 minutes, being this trail and the way this trail set up, it probably took me at least 45 minutes, maybe closer to an hour, to actually like do those 4 miles. um, so it just put me such in a deeper state because even the electrolyte and water that I was drinking just wasn't having any effect on me. So as I'm sitting here, John's giving me some Gatorade. He's trying to give me some chips and some other things, naming what the aid station has and what I had given them to give me. I just like couldn't barely get anything done. I think I did drink some Coke as well, but then I was just like, I just gotta lay down because I'm like breathing like a little actually heavier than that, and I was just like, I just need to lay down and just shut my body down, and we're just gonna see here in a little bit. So I laid down in the grass. I didn't care. Um, the grass actually hurt because it was so dry and like pointy. It was actually hurting laying on it, but I'm just laid on my stomach. I'm still like hyperventilating, overheated. I could feel my core. And the reason why I laid on my stomach and not on my back is because since my legs were stiffening up, I wanted to get the acid in my calves back in it and absorbed back into my body, which usually helps me when I lay on my stomach. It just feels like gravity brings the acid back into my body and it refreshes my legs. And I did feel like that was working after a couple minutes of just laying there. Um, and I wouldn't really say my body was cooling down per se for like 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden it went from like overheated to completely shutting down. Like even though I was sort of laying in the shade to try to like cool myself quicker, it was still like 70 degrees in the shade. And I basically went from like completely overheated to like hypothermia. My body was, still tingling, my head, my toes, my fingers. I was still dehydrated, but now I was starting to shake, getting like the cold shakes and stuff like that. I'm like, oh geez, I was like, this is another warning sign that I just like need to stop, relax. There was even, uh, I don't know if it was John's towel or somebody else's towel. They put a towel over my back, um, but it wasn't even helping. And I was just like, oh, I'm done. There's no way I can continue. Somehow I managed to like stumble into the sun a little bit. Um, and I started to like warm back up because like the rays were hitting me directly then, even though again it was like 70 degrees in the shade still, or the shady part that I was in. Maybe not like full shade, but um, it was still like 70. It felt 70. So then when I was in the sun, it was probably more like 80 plus, like just hitting on me. And I warmed back up a little bit. Um, so I got the shakes away because again, my body just went complete shutdown. And then, you know, probably like 15, 20 minutes later, I was able to sit in a chair again, started drinking some stuff, started to come back around, um, and get some feeling like back in my body. So I could feel, I think I even ate some like peanut butter pretzels, bites, and like I could like feel the stuff like um, the tingling sensation start to leave my body. Um, I still wasn't 100% correct, but I mean, I was in situations like this before. Um, I didn't really want to struggle as much as I did. Um, but again, without a doubt, 100%, if there's any medical personnel there, like a nurse or even like race direct personnel, um, they would have said medically, you're not going anywhere. You're done for the day. Like, as soon as I came in, and even like after I recovered, they would have been like, no. But John just basically said, he'll be fine. He's just being a baby. We'll get him going here in a little bit. But I just, like, I was in such a state, like, when I was in this state before I actually went to the hospital for, like, hypernatremia or hyponatremia. Um, and they, like, said, like, my kidneys and stuff were, like, getting ready to shut down because of it. So I was in that bad of shape this weekend. So when people were like, what do you mean you were in bad shape? I was in, like, the heat stroke, hyponatremia state where if I probably didn't lay there for an hour, like somebody would have found me in the woods, laying down, passed out, probably dead, maybe even dead too. I was actually that bad, and like, it's no lie. I wish John would have got like some video of me, like basically hyperventilating and just like not being able to talk and like saying my feelings at the time. Um, so it would have been easier to explain. But that's like the short version of it. Um, and like somehow, like just sitting there for an hour, because if you know me, I recover extremely well, which is just so stupid to be able to like go through such a bad state and then like be fine so quickly. It's like dumbfounding, I guess is the word to use. And people were just like looking at me. They're like, "What are you doing? Like, how are you even like moving or anything right now? Like as bad as you came in." And I'm just like, I don't even know myself. And even a couple aid stations after that, some of the people were like, I still can't believe you're going as bad as you were. And I'm like, your guess is as good as mine. So like I was not the only one feeling that. Like other people saw that. I don't know if John will ever admit to it. That he probably knew I was that bad, but um, or if he actually knew I was that bad, but I was. And then the rest of the race, I just plugged along and uh, somehow managed to finish. I just never went in as like zone 4 or 5. I tried to like 1, 2, and 3, but more in like 1 or 2 the rest of the race, because even trying to gear up a little bit, I could just feel my body just like, yeah, you're not going to do it because you're going to redline after that. So I just couldn't do it. But I guess that was my race. I got behind. So basically, I got behind on electrolytes, um, and food, and then like the trauma with my stomach and wrist. And I went from like completely overheated, like heat stroke, like bad heat stroke, like 911 heat stroke. You need to go get checked now, to being able to like run 44 miles within like an hour and a half. So that's the gist of it, because I know people were asking. And then the next day, which is even more ridiculous, as I posted online, as bad as I was and struggled for like the next 44 miles, I slept for 10 hours, just, 10, 12 hours before I woke up. The next day, I went to bed at like 1 a.m. and I'm pretty sure I woke up at like 1 p.m. Maybe it was 11 a.m. Either way, to get some food. And my legs weren't even sore. My body felt fine, except for my wrist. My knees were a little bit sore, but that's because I twisted them at like mile 68. And I knew I was going to feel it. And I have like a little bit of like chest congestion now. Like I was coughing later in the race because it felt congested, but I couldn't get like phlegm and stuff up. So like, it just pisses me off, frankly, like how bad I can feel during a race and struggle so bad, and then the next day like be perfectly fine. So I have no explanation. Nobody really does. But that's what happened, because people might not believe it, but that's the second week in a row that I somehow managed to finish a race like battling heat stroke for 40 plus miles. So I'm going to take a couple weeks off, because I don't think my body can handle it. As you probably see it, you can still see it in my eyes and face. It's still like so hard to talk and whatever, get through this. But yeah, it's enough.